hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey, go.
Yeah, how are you? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly.
So, what we want to talk about today is several things. First of all, we have just released an update to the Beam desktop wallet on DAppnet, and we will talk about what it has to offer and some important improvements that we made, and also some things that we're still working on. And in general, it opens the road to uh, many different applications that will use the feature that was kind of most, I think, interesting and important in this release, except for the hardware wallet, and it's the high frequency transactions. And the first application that is using it right now is the Nephrite confidential stablecoin. So we will talk about that. Then we will answer the questions that we have from the community, quite a lot of them, and they keep coming. And also, as this kind of like central topic that we advertise, in, before each space, I would like to talk about the web wallet update on how it is coming along, and also talk about how we can use it for adoption and what we can do with the DApp Store. Yeah, so these are the things that we will talk about.
Absolutely, like a very big topic, breadth, and very good questions coming through from the community. And the first question, I believe, to come through from the community via the Beam Messenger.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Uh, what is the question? Do you see it somewhere?
I see it somewhere. Ah, I think the question is also relating to the Beam Messenger, and it was talking about fees for sending messages to avoid spam attacks and this kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's start with this question because it's a good one. So there currently Beam Messenger works using SBBS. SBBS is a service that's present in all Beam nodes, and uh, as you know, it's used mostly for kind of creating transactions by interacting between wallets. But now we have also adapted it uh, for the messenger. Before that, it was also used for broadcasting offers on the asset swap and the atomic swap marketplaces. And it's currently the service works outside the blockchain, so it's not related to the blockchain at all. That's why it does not charge fees directly. It does not have this capacity, right? So in order to charge fees, you need some kind of a transaction because it consumes some of the UTXOs that you have and all that. Uh, the benefit here is that these messages can be sent very quickly. Does not need to wait, for a block time or whatever to close. Um, in order to battle the spam problem, what we have done is we have added an additional proof of work actually inside the wallet. And the way this proof of work helps us is that before the wallet sends an SBBS message, it needs to solve some kind of a simple, relatively simple, like proof of work riddle. So if you are trying to send like massive amounts of SBBS messages, it will be costly in terms of the CPU resources that you will need to spend, and that's how we implemented this protection. So that's kind of it's something that was not added for the messenger. It was actually added a long time ago in general to protect from spamming SBBS messages. So we have that for a while. Now, however, charging for messages is not necessarily a bad idea, regardless from like SBBS implementation. We can think how it could be implemented, and one of the possible interesting mechanism that we could utilize is laser beam. For those of you who are new here and don't know what it is, it was created long time ago. And it's basically a direct payment channel implementation, similar to the Lightning Network that we have added. So you create a paid channel or like finance channel, and then you can exchange instant transactions and only settle eventually when the channel is closing. This is exactly the same idea as the one used in the Lightning Network. What we didn't do, we didn't implement the routing that the Lightning Network has, because honestly, I don't think it works very well, but it can work nicely in a so-called hub and spoke architecture. So we basically have like one big hub, which holds a lot of finance channels and then exchanges the funds between those channels inside the hub. So that's possible. And then it allows you to have micropayments, which is what you need when you want to pay for messages. Like it's a good, interesting idea to discuss, but at the moment, it's not a simple feature to add.
For sure, and like if it was just done on like the layer one, paying for the fees, this would also make the messenger as it is a lot slower than like using SBBS, right?
Yes, I think like we can have a messenger contract, which is like fairly simple, but it would be different in many ways, and yes, much slower.
Okay.
But there are some interesting thoughts behind it. Like let me think it through. Like maybe we will come up with all kinds of interesting features around it. Now, why are we talking about the Beam Messenger? Because today we have released the updated version of the Beam Desktop Wallet 7.3 for Dappnet. And we are hoping to release the mainnet version next week. Now, it's very important and helpful that anyone in the community who is like really wants to participate and help Beam in general to download this version and to play with it and to look for bugs, because earlier today, one of our great community members, Daniel, also known on Twitter as intern.beam, found a bug. He found a bug in the DAO accumulator contract that was kind of talked about a lot in terms of the liquidity accumulation phase before the DEX launch. And he found a very interesting bug. And also, like, no, it was not just a bug, it was Vladdy's bug, which does not happen very often. And he can, be very proud and probably join the list of like 5 people that ever found Vladdy's bugs in the world, ever. So it really helps. And I really salute that, and like it's very helpful, especially now that we have a ton of features and corners and applications and things. And everybody, like everyone is using it on a different machine in a slightly different setup, doing all kinds of things that hit all kinds of scenarios that are not necessarily mainstream or like edge cases, which are very important. And it's a great contribution. It's a great effort that we really need from the community to make this product better. So I really encourage everyone. Head of Beam Inters right now. Yeah, he was just promoted, Daniel, in the community channel. So, and it really helps. It really helps. Like in general, our community is absolutely amazing. The support, the participation, but for testing kind of efforts when the major versions or important versions are released, it's also extremely helpful to get more feedback. So just to talk about like what we have or like what are the key features that we have in the Dappnet right now in the new wallet version, and we'll have on mainnet next week. So first of all, let's start with the hardware wallet support that we have been working on for a while. And now it was made really simple. When you initialize a new wallet, you can just kind of choose to add or connect your hardware wallet. We're talking about right now Ledger, NanoX, and NanoX Plus. And please test it. It's supposed to work for all types of transactions that we have: interactive, Lelantus, non-interactive, and public offline. Yeah, the public offline had some issue that was fixed really basically earlier today, and was included in the version that we have released. The Beam Messenger, the first version, it will be improved significantly in the next version, but for now it has very basic functionality included, and it is featured on the toolbar on the left. Just that is kind of built-in wallet feature. It's not a DApp. Also, we did a lot of work, and we still need to do some additional work to feature the asset ID in more prominent places. Because as you know, the asset ID is the only unique identifier that allows you to distinguish between two assets that are called Beam or BeamX or anything else. It was hidden in all kinds of menus, sub-menus, but now in the new version, it is featured on all of your kind of, the places where the asset is shown. I still think we need to add it to the transaction list, to the main transaction list, even though it's present in the details, but it would be, I think, beneficial to see it prominent in the transaction list. And also in the confirmation dialogues. And whenever you are selecting which asset you want to send or receive, in the lists, the drop-downs, in the send and receive screens and the applications, the ID is also always present. So you can more easily navigate and understand exactly what you are sending or receiving.
This makes a lot of sense, especially regarding like the asset ID, and this was like when the asset swaps went live, and with the reduced cost of like the confidential assets being minted, a lot of the community saw like a bunch of obviously fake like Beam or BMX or fake other assets and this kind of stuff, and it was a little bit confusing, obviously. So like the asset ID acts as like a unique identifier, so that if you know the ID, then you don't have to worry about much else.
Yes.
Like you can know that what you're buying is what you're wanting to buy.
Absolutely. Now, there was a question earlier about that and whether there should be some mechanism to kind of restrict or authorize specific pairs to be present on the DEX, for example. But earlier, if you remember, we had those discussions. We tried to do something with the check mark. It did not really go very well, and we have decided against it eventually. So instead, what we're going to do is two things. First of all, we're going to clearly specify and feature the ID of the asset in all important kind of decision making places. And also, we will provide more like a positive reinforcement, like a favorite button or like a shortlist, things that will allow you to sort and kind of make your pools that you are using and you know that they are the correct ones to be featured and shown in your favorite screen. And then you will have less chance of being kind of misguided or kind of trying to make a trade with the wrong asset. So we will try to do it this way for now, instead of restricting presence of other assets in the DEX or anywhere else. Now, also there is a feature that today I was kind of surprised to learn that not many people know about, or like maybe people don't know about. When you are looking at the list of your assets in the wallet, like if you have a lot of assets, on the top part where all of these kind of assets are listed, you can click on one or two or several assets and make them selected. And then in the top right corner, you have this switch when you can only show the selected assets. So basically you can operate on a short list and of assets that you are like more interested to you right now. And also it filters the list of transactions. So you will also see the transactions with those assets in the list. And then you can just click on remove filter and it will go back to the full list of all of your holdings. I think it's a very useful feature if you operate a lot of different assets, as I do, and obviously on Dappnet you have a lot of assets for testing. So yeah, I think it's a good feature. Now, if you have like additional suggestions of things that you would like to kind of be more customized to your experience, it's also something we can definitely discuss, and would love to have your input on how we can improve the wallet experience in terms of usability, because it's the first time that we now have really a lot of assets, because as all pools in the DEX create their own LP tokens. They don't have like really good unique names for now, and so yeah, so it's kind of becoming more relevant to talk about like customization of the wallet experience. Also in terms of the dApps, right? We have more dApps, so maybe some of them should be in the short list or liked or featured or like made more prominent in some way. Yeah.
Absolutely, and this like the filtering of assets will become even more like important with more being added, whether it's because of the DEX or with stablecoins and this kind of thing. So the feature that you mentioned, super handy. Like you just select the ones you want and then switch it over to selected, and you just see what you want to see. I guess if the asset list grows extremely large, that may not scale so well, but for now it's excellent.
Absolutely. Okay, so people already start finding bugs, I see, in the messenger, which is great. Okay, so let's move to the questions for now, and then kind of talk more about the web wallet. I will find my question list back. Okay.
One of the questions that came up, and it's come up a few times in the past, and it's about like the decentralization of hash rate. Should Beam have like, or I guess the foundation have its own mining pool? I think a user mentioned one of the mining pools has over 50% or nearabouts, and like how is best to kind of fix that potential problem with one of the pools having a large share of the hash power for Beam.
Yeah, so in the past we have been strongly against mining by ourselves, because we felt that it kind of sends, I don't know, maybe the wrong message, or maybe makes this kind of, if the project has to mine itself, maybe it becomes, weaker in terms of reputation. But yeah, like I totally agree that having a centralization of mining power is not a good thing to have, for sure. One thing that totally fixes that obviously is beam price, right? Like if the price was higher, then that problem would be far less severe. And also the delisting from Binance, I think, removed some of the pools that work with Binance. So this was also an issue. I think that the solution is kind of composite and made of doing some mining development, like you have business development unit, like mining development, talking more to different miners and trying to bring them on board. Maybe mining ourselves, like eventually could be done, but I don't see how this is really helpful. Like if it's your miner and depending like how much power you control. By the way, the night sesh is still operational. That service that we used, or like not we used, but our miners used.
I think it is, but I do remember vaguely over the last year or something, some news about Nice Hash, and I can't quite remember what it was.
Yeah, like back in the day, Nice Hash was mostly used for attacks, but it was also kind of a good resource to work with decentralization or like add additional capacity when you needed it in order to balance the mining pools. We will look into that. Like I don't have a like very strict like answer to either side, but we will check what can be done. Also, if you know miners that are looking what to do with their GPUs now that the Ethereum is proof of stake, I think Beam could be also an option. Okay, so what else do we have in terms of questions?
The next question that came up, we have answered, and that was when the next release will come, and that's on Dappnet now. So if you haven't downloaded it after the space, jump on and download, get testing, and the mainnet release will be around next week.
You know what? There is this question. I think it's the one about showing pools that it's basically a suggestion for the DEX.
Yeah.
So indeed, there are a lot of kind of improvements or like usability suggestions, which are very good that are important for like making these applications, the new applications, especially better. There is one thing that this specific question touches, and it's something that we had an internal discussion like for a very long time, and we also talked about it in previous spaces. We mentioned it, but maybe it's a discussion that's worth actually making into a official discussion or maybe even a vote. And I'll tell you why. Because when you let me first like read the question and then explain like why it's very important. So I think it'd be useful to show pools for which I have AMML, which is the LP tokens for. The My tab only shows pools that I've opened, and on top on that is actual withdraw screen that you can get to show how much MML you actually have for that pool. And right now it shows the pools total. So basically the question here is that can I filter the pools in the list of the application to match the LP tokens that I hold, which is very reasonable, right? Like I have LP tokens from several pools and I want to see those pools first and foremost. Now, the problem with that is that currently all of the applications have very strict privacy settings. They cannot know the balance that the wallet holds of any asset, which includes, so happens, the LP tokens that you're holding. Now, what this means is that you enter the application doesn't know anything about your balances, so it cannot filter the list of pools for you. It doesn't know, right? So in order to kind of provide a temporary fix for the situation, we provided the favorites, right? So in the favorites, when you add liquidity to the pool and you're holding the LP token, you just add this pool to your favorites, and now you have it in a short list. Obviously not a perfect solution, but we believe that in short term, it's better than nothing. Now, about the ability of applications to see different details of your holdings, this is something that we thought about in several ways. So the first kind of thought we had is to provide permissions. Like each application will request permissions to access either certain balances of specific coins, or maybe like if it's like something like DEX, maybe all balances of all coins. And I was never quite comfortable with this approach because in my mind, it always goes to these like phone application experiences when you install some, I don't know, I spot like a light flashlight application, and then suddenly it requests access to your contacts and your data and your everything, like it's basically a kind of approach that doesn't work very well because if you do not approve those permissions, what happens? Can you say, no, I don't want the application to access these data, and then the application should handle this situation, right? It's complicated approach, but we need to think about it. By the way, this is also the reason for those who notice that at the bottom of each DApp, you have this pane that opens that includes your wallet balance and the transactions for this specific application. The reason for that is that pane belongs to the wallet. It cannot be seen by the DApp, right? But in order to make it more convenient for you to see how much holdings you have of each coin, we have added this pane that kind of floats from the bottom part of the screen and shows you your current status whenever you are inside the application, so you don't have to go to the main screen to check this data. So what I'm saying is that we can talk about it like in more formal kind of feature request or a vote even to decide whether we want applications to be able to request certain access rights. And what it will improve the usability of the applications to provide more accurate, kind of tailor-made experience for you based on the tokens that you're holding, but it will also provide additional risk for the privacy.
Absolutely, and like it's a very interesting discussion to have. Like there's pros and cons on both sides, obviously. I noticed this when I first tested Nephrite app, and I wasn't using the pane down the bottom because I'm a very basic human, and I kept going back to the main screen and then forgetting how much Beam I had in my Dappnet wallet and going back and I couldn't think like why doesn't the DApp know how many Beam I have? But then then we discussed it after and I thought, oh, of course, and it makes sense. And I guess like it's a tricky thing in general to get privacy and like usability aligned and good on both sides.
Yeah.
Which is something that like has been a challenge in general for Beam, not just with dApps and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's been a long ongoing discussion on this balance between the usability and the privacy. And as I mentioned before, we often err on the side of privacy, like we often take this to be kind of less convenient but more private, not necessarily this balance we get it right all the time, and we need to discuss that and get to the better conclusions together. By the way, regarding the previous question that we discussed, and also appears here on the whether the assets in the pools are verified or not, like what kind of assets are those? One of the things that helps a lot in this case, and something that we might probably also add in the near future and improve, is the amount, like the activity of the pool, right? So the more active the pool is, not just in terms of the liquidity that is there, like the volume, but the volume of transactions, how many users, like how many different activities there. It may, the popularity of the pool may also be a good indication of whether it's a scam or not, because I believe that the valid pools will have more activity naturally than the scammy ones, I think.
True.
Or like maybe, I don't know, maybe community voting on the pool. So like voting not in terms of like voting, but rather like, I don't know, likes or favorites. Even though all of these things can be tricked, but still maybe it's a good idea to have those.
Yeah, absolutely. And this makes me think, I forget the website. I think there's a few of them, like even CoinGecko and Dex Tools and these kind of things do it, where you can like give a thumbs up for the assets, or I think Dex Tools has like a kind of meter, and it talks about like a trust score and this kind of stuff. And I think that takes like a number of factors into it and this kind of stuff, and displays it on their website. So many ways to go about it, but of course, like always gameable, and of course there always needs to be like due diligence and a little bit of caution on the user side as well.
Yeah. There was another question just came in. Is it possible for users to create high frequency transactions? Um, and it's a good question. Like the meaning of high frequency transactions is basically to be able to monitor the situation in the mempool before the block is closed, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say the simplest example I could kind of think of, and it's very, I don't know, like straightforward. So let's say you and I, we want both to buy the same NFT, right? And we're
Yeah.
bidding on it. And so, like, if we used a regular mechanism without high frequency transactions, the way it would work, like you would say, send your bid, I would send my bid, and then when the block is mined, eventually only one of those, the highest bid would go in, and like one of us would buy it, and the other one would be basically, left bidding for another NFT. Now, in the high frequency transactions, you can monitor the mempool and you can see that I have already placed a higher bid than yours, even before the block is mined. And now you can adjust your bid, or I can adjust my bid, or eventually we can do this bidding war like within the one block time. And then you can say, okay, whenever I'm not going to bid on that, I'm going to switch to another NFT. And then when the next block is mined, all of these things have already happened, right? So eventually, the bidding has already occurred within the block. And as we know, the block time on average is 1 minute, but it can be also longer or shorter. But the transactions, this kind of mempool negotiation, which uses SBBS, is much faster and can be much more efficient. So this requires an application. The user cannot do it manually, right? You can, but it's very, very difficult. You will see like a flurry of transactions happening. You will need to make decisions. It's not something that is intended for the UI, but it is intended for the automatic handling by the application, specifically the application shader that runs in the wallet and monitors these information. So it can see, for example, when there is a slippage that's higher than the tolerance, or it can see that the fees has changed, right? If those are dynamic fees. And then it can either make automatic adjustments within the specific parameters that the application allows, and thus make sure the transaction still goes through, or it can abort and alert the user that, listen, the operation that you're trying to do will not be able to perform in this block. So all of these options are handled by the DApp. So answering this question is yes, it is theoretically possible for users to use high frequency transaction, but it would hardly be feasible because of the nature of how they work.
So this just so that I can wrap my head around like the benefits of it, would this like avoid failed transactions or this kind of thing?
Yes, this will avoid failed transactions in situations where parameters change dynamically. And in Nephrite specifically, it's very useful because if you have like several people trying to do the same operation at the same time, like redeeming or like all kinds of situations where each transaction changes the state and makes all the rest of the transactions different. By the way, because of the bugs or because of the lack of support or correct support for this feature, that's why a lot of people had trouble testing Nephrite with the previous version of the Dappnet wallet because it did not handle some of the situations with high frequency transactions correctly, and that led to failed transactions. You click the button, you're trying to do an operation like open a trove or whatever, and then suddenly it fails. You don't understand why. So this is now fixed in the newest version of the wallet.
Okay, nice. And like in general, a very like useful like feature to not have so many like failed transactions. I know that a lot of like the big events, like whether it's an NFT or whatever that were happening on Ethereum, many of the users were complaining about like high transaction fees and failed transactions and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's important to note that in Beam, you never pay fees for failed transaction, right? That's not possible. to pay fees for failed transaction. Failed transaction just means that the transaction was not accepted or will not be accepted by the blockchain, will not be included. You don't pay for them in any case, but still, even if you don't pay for them, it can, it can lead to missed opportunities or missed actions that you wanted to perform but could not. So yeah, failed transactions are not good in any way, but don't worry, you never pay for those in Beam.
Perfect.
Yeah. I would like to move to another question. I'm skipping here a little bit, but we do have a lot of ground to cover about the public offline address. And there was a suggestion to move it to a more kind of prominent location in the wallet. And build a partial FAQ for the wallet, like inside the wallet. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it means. I mean, like we do have full documentation, but like when you are in the wallet, it might be easier to click on this kind of eye or the question mark icon and just see what it means at each place. Yeah, all of these are good suggestions, but I would like to focus for a second on the public offline address because this is another great example of how kind of privacy focused the UI have been so far and what it means like in practice. What is a public offline address? So the regular offline address, which became available when we added the Lilantus protocol support, is basically an ability to send a transaction, like UTXO into the shielded pool, and then the recipient of these funds can take it out later from the pool and use it whenever they want without being online when the transaction happens. Unlike the regular Mimblewimble transaction that requires signature from both wallets, this one does not, and it kind of works more similar to Bitcoin in this regard. You can send something and forget it. But in order to do that properly, you do need some information from the receiver that you usually get beforehand in an exchange when you like first get the first address. It also includes a set of vouchers, how we call them, which allow you to send certain amount of offline payments, and then those vouchers are periodically refreshed by the wallets through SBBS when the receiver and the sender are both online or something. Now, the public offline address does not require vouchers. It can be used basically like forever. You can publish it on your website. And the benefit is that, once again, it's private, right? So like nobody knows who sent to this public address. But probably if you publish it on your website, then people will know that it's you. You are the owner. Doesn't have to be like this. But once again, like if you use the same address for many different people, it makes it less private in terms of like people can meet and say, oh, you know this guy, that's his public offline address. Yes, I know him too, and compare information. That's why we consider public offline address a little bit less private than even the regular offline address. The second point, which is even more technical, is that there is a theoretical possibility of the sender to this, like the public online offline address, to see when those funds are spent. I mean, like I send, let's say, like one Beam to a public offline address, and then I have a theoretical possibility. It's not supported by the wallet, obviously. You need to write custom code for that, but it's theoretically possible to see when it was sent. You still don't see where it was sent or what happened to it, but you just see that somebody touched it, like the recipient, right, which you probably know, touched these funds. And still, this provides additional information which can theoretically be used to correlate or trace or whatever. And this is why we have kind of located this public offline address in the settings, deep inside the wallet, because we feared that since it's so convenient to use, right? It's just like Bitcoin. You create an address, you send it to everybody, like send me money. It will be abused in a way, and then it will influence the privacy of the network. That's how it came to be. Honestly, I don't even know if I can find it easily. Settings, you go to settings, privacy, No? Yes? I have no idea what it is.
I was looking for it the other day also, and it was quite difficult to find.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
we
like,
hit it well.
yeah, and I mean, like, it when you find it, you think, why is it all the way back here? But like what you've just explained with regards to negatively
Yeah,
affecting like your privacy and this kind of stuff, and for like if everyone was using that, then it would also negatively affect like the whole
exactly.
network privacy.
Exactly. Yeah, I found it. It's in utilities. But
Yeah,
it
of course it is.
took me to try. No, but really, it's like it's a great question, and when I see those questions, I'm always like, um, I'm always thinking like whether uh, all of these decisions are actually like correct because yeah, like public offline address when it was created, it was intended for very specific use cases of anonymous donations. That was the goal behind it, right? We could have avoided
Yeah,
using it altogether, but then we said, listen, let's say you're an organization that wants to receive anonymous donations. This is perfect for you. You take this public offline address, you publish it on your website, and then whoever sends funds to you does this without fear of like disclose. Like, nobody knows who that person is, not even the recipient. And the fact that this donor can see when those funds are spent, that's like, okay, not a big deal, right? So that's what was the original thought behind this public offline address. But then when we have added it to the wallet, and initially it actually was on, like I think the main receive screen, uh,
yeah,
and we thought, wait a second. But now what's going to happen is everybody's going to use this address, and without kind of really understanding what this means, and then like it's going to be a privacy problem. So we hid it deep inside the setting. So yeah, that's first of all, that's why it's there. If you ever wondered, and it's a good question whether we should make it more prominent. Like one of the things that I really kind of it's a big pain point in general for privacy or like private technology. Uh, it's very difficult to work with it correctly unless like you understand it, and understanding it is very complicated. And what we have been trying to do, at least until now, like in Beam Design, is to nudge or guide our users to more private and more secure choices, right? And sometimes it came at the expense of usability, like right, because we know that there is this trade-off between the privacy and how easy is something to use.
absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of usability, I will segue because I see that the time is running. I will segue into the web wallet situation. And first of all, we have the Dappnet version of the web wallet almost ready. I think we will push it. So it's not like a perfect version, but it's good for testing. And I think we should start testing it together. It looks nice. I don't think we will even push it to the Chrome store. We will just distribute it as an archive and explain how to install it. You can always install extensions locally on your browser. It's nice, for kind of local testing. Very useful. That's how developers test it or QA. Now, it was like in terms of the functionality. First of all, it was adapted as we talked about to the latest changes in the Chrome manifest and like the way that extensions work. But when I was thinking about this topic, I have realized that probably there is another important difference between, let's say, Beam Wallet and the MetaMask, right? In terms of how they function, which I think probably not everyone knows about, or like it's worth mentioning. Um, the way MetaMask works is it's an extension which is installed in your browser. It stores all of the secrets locally in an encrypted way, obviously. And then it connects to an API, to the backend, to the server API, in order to get all of the information about the blockchain. So it's kind of centralized in a way that you use a specific kind of centralized server as a backend for MetaMask. And obviously, it's safe because it stores all of the secrets locally. It never sends them to the server in an open way or any other way. Uh, Now, Beam Wallet also stores all the secrets locally in the same way, but also it does not use an kind of external API. It can connect to any Beam node, which provides a WebSocket functionality. WebSocket is a technology that allows you to open a channel, like usually in the browser you ask for a page and you get it, or ask for some data through an API and you get it. But WebSockets is a technology that allows you to open a channel which is bidirectional and send information between the node and the wallet both ways all the time. And this is important to get the updates, the events that happen on the blockchain, update the state of the wallet, and all that. And this was the component that we previously used to hold in the background of the extension. And this was exactly the mechanism that Google deprecated and made us change. So now when you're going to open the web wallet, it will open a tab, which will have to stay open as long as you want to receive updates in the wallet. So basically, when you close the tab, it's like you close the wallet. Now it's annoying on one side, but it's also nice because now we have more real estate that we can utilize for showing more information in the wallet. So that's the kind of the main change. One of the interesting things that we always wanted to do and we need to do now that we have the new version is to tie it in a much better way with the DApp Store. Because all of the applications that you see today in desktop wallet, they're basically web pages. And just like you saw in the case of Beam Bridges, they can be just as easily served from anywhere, from a server or whatever. And then you can interact with them by connecting your Beam wallet. Now, there are 2 points here. The first one that was also mentioned is how to make this entire store decentralized, but still serviceable as a web, through a browser. For example, if you store it on IPFS, you can then use all kinds of tricks to map those pages to specific IPFS locations. So it will be decentralized, but the access to it will go through DNS services, right? Because eventually you need some kind of a URL or some kind of an address to get to it in the browser. So this is the point that we need to think about of how to make this happen. But once we do, it will be much more convenient to get access to all of the applications without actually installing the desktop wallet and synchronizing it and all that. It will be much better onboarding experience, and we hope to utilize that for kind of increasing adoption because it's much easier to say, listen, just go to this URL, click on that extension, and you're good to go. Now, the thing is that even better, we can, in some cases, we can do it in a simpler way in terms of basically embedding the entire wallet library into a page. Like we can do that. And now you don't even have to install the extension. Like if it's something that affects the conversion, you can just basically create your seed phrase or use the seed phrase in place. It's not secure for those, it's not secure. It's not going to be used instead of the wallet. But it can be used in cases when you interact with certain applications that don't require massive amounts of funds or use as a secondary sort of wallet and then switch to the main wallet for all the other kind of more sensitive operations. But it's possible to do these combinations and provide decentralized applications that are kind of easier to access than installing the desktop wallet. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah, the web wallets definitely open up easier onboarding, and this kind of relates also to what we mentioned about. I think it was in the last space about when people are opening up the desktop wallet for the first time, should they be loading the whole blockchain or should they be using another node and fast syncing to that? And again, it's back to that trade-off between decentralization and supporting the network and a fast, easy onboard and easy UI for new users.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we wanted to do for a long time. But now that we have finally we have a working wallet again, the web wallet. I think it will be possible to engage. Also, let's not forget that the DAppnet, like DAppnet, I'm sorry, the DApp Store screen itself, it's basically a combination right now of two components. It's a combination of a centralized like list that is served from a server, but it's also displaying the applications that were uploaded through the DApp Store contract, and are basically located on the data itself is on the IPFS, and the metadata is stored in the contract on chain. So the screen, like for the DApp Store itself, is also a decentralized application of its own, right? So if we can support that seamlessly on the web, it means that like you don't need the wallets to get started with the DApp. You just go to the screen, and then it brings information from chain, like it's public information, obviously, and then presents it in your browser, and then you can start interacting with it through like any means possible, an extension or like maybe inside the page. Like yeah, so that's something that we need to figure out in the coming weeks, and kind of finalize this web experience for Beam. And then we can link to it from anywhere, right? It's much easier to, you want to see our decks, no problem. Just go to this page, boom, all the information is there. You want to interact with it, no problem, install the extension, right? It's much simpler to present and then say, oh, you have to download the desktop wallet, synchronize it, and only then you will be able to see the deck. So that's kind of the difference here. And I think it's an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I obviously do like lots of crypto stuff in my spare time, which I have plenty of. And like whenever I meet something like an application where I have to like download a new wallet and open that before I can see like any of the information in the application, it's always like it makes me stop and think like, why can I not just see the information and this kind of stuff and create some kind of like a barrier to onboarding?
Exactly. The experience is much better if you can see information immediately.
Yeah.
And it's kind of also it creates this desire to use it. Like you see, like something is happening, right? People making transactions, and you say, "Oh, I want into this," instead of putting in a lot of effort first. Yeah, it's basic kind of internet experience 101. But yeah, now with the new wallet and some adjustments to the DApp store, it will be possible to implement that as well in Beam, which I think will be great.
Absolutely, that'll be wicked.
Yeah. So we're on that. Okay. Do we have any other questions we didn't answer, or something important we forgot? Yeah. We can talk about in the next space. Maybe we can mention the SGX story, which is kind of being discussed in the Beam community right now. Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Wicked.
Yeah, it was very, very nice.
As always, a pleasure, Alex, and thank you for all of the insights on Beam. And very, very like exciting times, I think, for Beam at the moment as well.
Is that your new family member there?
Yeah, he was whinging a little bit because he's trying to get my sandal off so he can eat it while I'm talking.
Yeah.
But he's got it now, so he's happy.
That's what it sounded like. Sounded like victory.
Yeah, my sandal doesn't look so happy, but he does. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, and thank you all for joining us this week. A lot of updates are coming, and we will see you next week as well. So yeah, stay healthy and safe, and see you soon.
Absolutely. See you guys. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye bye.